I never thought I'd be on a podcast talking about jewelry, and yet here we are by way of another social media introduction. I've just continued to love these opportunities to connect in somewhat real life with people that are typically only behind a keyboard. And that's why I have Nicholas Hayford with me today. Nicholas and I connected through X. You guys have heard that so many times over the last couple of episodes. And it has just been such a wonderful gift to start to get to know guys better, just to build some relationships, just to learn from so many different walks of life. And so today we're going to talk jewelry. We're going to talk manhood. We're going to talk just all things life, maybe a little bit of election because we're recording this just days after the crazy presidential election that we just had. I don't know where we're going to go, but for now, Nicholas, what's up, dude? Welcome to Unlocking Greatness.
Excited to be here today. Definitely.
So you are sitting in one of your laboratories, I take it, or it looks like. And so what are you doing today?
Oh, today I'm making jewelry. You might see my bike up there. I also ride bikes a lot. That's another thing that I'm really into. But making jewelry from scratch, got tons of projects I'm working on here for clients all across the country. Picked up a new project from a lady up in Ohio just the other day. Black diamond platinum ring. So that's going to be an interesting piece to make for her. And yeah, like you said, trying to digest everything that happened in the election last week. So I can't believe that's almost a week ago. But
hopefully people are spending more money. Maybe now they feel like they can part with it a little bit more.
Let's hope so. I'll tell you what, the week or two before an election, when everything's really ramping up, jewelry sales just go plummet all the way to the bottom. So
yeah, I can't even imagine. Okay, so tell me a little bit about like what goes into that, and I want to get into some of your backstory because you told me some things that almost made me want to throw up with claustrophobia. So we'll get there about like crawling around in mines and things like that. But so you're sitting in it's not an office, but in a lab. You are making jewelry, and so like you talked about this black diamond ring. So like what goes into that? Like, how do you, like, what part are you involved in? And like, how do you bring what's project completion for you?
So a lot of times, for most jewelers, and for me in particular, I don't cut stones. So I get a stone that's already cut from somebody. It gets mined from the ground and then gets sent to a lapidarist, is what you call a stone cutter, and they shape the stone depending on what the crystal looks like. So every crystal that comes out of the ground looks a little bit different. Every diamond that comes out of the ground looks a little bit different, but it definitely doesn't look like the diamond that you see in a showcase. It's going to be rough looking. A lot of times the outside's not very shiny, lots of things like that. So I'll find a stone that works for the customer, both budget, the size and shape they're looking for, and diamonds, the color and clarity that they're looking for. Right now, obviously, for a lot of people, budget is the biggest portion of what they're looking for. And this, like we said earlier, in this economy, budget is kind of everything. But it's always really been that way. That's nothing new. It's been that way since the beginning of time. If you had more money, you bought bigger jewelry. If you had less money, you bought smaller jewelry. And so for this client in particular, they had seen a design I did online that they really liked, a marquee ring. And a marquee is just a kind of like that shape, like a pear with an extra point at the bottom. And they saw this ring that they really liked, asked me if I could do it in a different metal for them. They wanted to do platinum, and that they wanted to do something a little bit different with a black diamond. So it's black color diamond. It's opaque. You don't see any light coming through it, so it just reflects a little light off the surface. And so we kind of went back and forth, came up with the design that she really liked, the stone size that she really liked, fit her budget, like I said. And then I will start with pieces of metal that look kind of like this here. So just a little piece of, we call it sizing stock. and then I will shape that into a ring. The other kind of process that I could do, which a lot of jewelry nowadays is being done, is somebody could draw it up on a computer using a computer-aided design software, CAD software, to design up a ring. Then you print that, 3D print that, and then you cast it. That's a little bit different of a process than what I do. I do what's called fabrication, where I start, like I said, with either a piece of sizing stock or a piece of wire, and then build the piece from nothing, essentially. So, yeah, quite a process goes into it.
And so let me ask you a couple questions about that. So what, like, is it just more about the artistry, or is there actual quality? Like, what is it that that makes it better or different when you're doing it by hand like that?
So it's definitely an old world style that is kind of a little bit of a lost art, you might say. Not a lot of people do what we call hand fabrication anymore. It's so much easier and faster to do a CAD design that you can print 100 times and not have to pay, and you have a machine that does it, as opposed to paying somebody like me to sit and hand make it every time. It'd be just like you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you pick up a set of cabinets that came off an assembly line, and or you go to a cabinet manufacturer who has a bunch of guys who come out, they measure exactly, they maybe do some extra details that you might not find on your pre-made cabinets. You really get to customize. Oh, I want to use a double stack of drawers here and some pull-outs at the bottom. So doing it by hand and doing it custom, you get a lot more chances to make things exactly the way you want it. Other thing with hand fabricated jewelry in particular is that when you cast metal, sometimes it has a little bit of what we call porosity, which is just air pockets inside the metal. With the materials that I use whenever I hand fabricate a piece, they are forged essentially. So they're rolled out, the metal gets much more compacted, and can, in certain circumstances, make it a little bit more durable than a cast piece would be. So,
Okay. And so that's got to make it a little bit more valuable then, right?
I think so.
You want it to be.
I want it to be, because I find my time to be a little bit more valuable than just having a machine make it. I mean, there's even machines now, there's robots now that will set stones. A lot of your really, really cheap, really, really inexpensive jewelry, like let's say the stuff that you might pick up at like Target or maybe like a TJ Maxx or some of those discounted places, those stones are actually cast in place. They're not even set after the piece is made, towards the end of the process. And so I think that there's a lot of details that go into a custom handmade piece, and that it makes it a little bit more, you get a little bit more story behind it. With a lot of people wanting to have piece of American made whatever now, make everything here in Tennessee where I'm at. So obviously I don't mine gold here, I don't mine stones here, but I mean, there are gold mines in the US. Honestly, most of the gold nowadays is recycled gold. A lot of times I get stuff in that we melt down, or we send off to our refiner. They melt it down, they refine it to the quality of gold that we want, whether that's like your 14 karat gold, which is about 58% gold, or your 18 karat gold, which is about 75% gold. And they'll send it back to us in whatever dimensions we ask for. And we recycle a lot of stuff now. Same thing with diamonds. So let's say you've got your grandma's ring or your mom's ring, and you're getting ready to get engaged, and you say, I don't really like this design of this ring, but it's got some stones in it that I really like. We'll take those stones out of that ring, design up a new ring for you, make sure those stones fit the new ring, and then we'll make that piece for you. And now you've got grandma or mom's or great grandmother's stones in this ring that has a little bit more modern style, or maybe it was maybe you've got grandma's ring from 1973 that looks like a 1973 ring, and you want something that's a little bit more classic and timeless. And we can make things like that as well. So
No, that totally makes sense. Okay, so it's interesting that you are that passionate. Other than the company that I buy or the place that I buy my wife's jewelry from, I don't talk to many people that are that passionate about jewelry. And so, and then again, if I do talk to people that are passionate about it, it's typically ladies because they love it. So how did you get so passionate about jewelry and making jewelry?
I don't even know that we talked about this the first
No.
time we talked. So call it summer of 2000. I'm dating myself. I'm going to be a sophomore in high school, and in
Wait, did
Indiana
you
at
say
the
dating yourself as a sophomore in high school, bro? I was out of high school already, so
in
give me a
2000 you were.
freaking break. Yeah, I graduated in 1996. I'm old. I'm
Okay,
old.
okay, okay. Well, I turned 40 this year, so
Oh, okay.
I hit the big 40 this year. Um,
Congratulations.
but so summer of 2000, I'm going into my sophomore year of high school. In Indiana at the time, they had this thing called Core 40, and you had to take a fine arts credit. I was already in a history class, so I didn't want to take art history. I don't really paint. I'm not a big drawer, let's say, um, and didn't really want to do pottery. Those were the options that I knew of. And one of my upperclassmen friends was like, "Hey, you should really take this jewelry course that they offer because the teacher hardly ever gets guys in the class, and she almost will always give them an A as long as you turn in the work." And so I'm like, "That's what I need. I need an easy A, an hour-long class during the day that I can just show up to. I turn in something, and I'm done." And so I go in and I'm the only guy in the class, which as a high school sophomore, I was pretty okay with.
Yeah,
Um,
seriously.
and I started doing jewelry. We did a lot of projects using copper and brass. And if you had any cash, you could order your own silver. And so I'm making these projects and I'm like, I kind of like this. It's nice to have a break during the day. I've always been a work with my hands kind of person. My grandpa was a woodworker. He worked on the pipelines as a job, but we'd go up and see him on the weekends. And he's always like, he's building chairs or he's building frames or he's building some crafty thing for my grandma. And so I've always been a guy who works with my hands. And so I kind of fell into it naturally where it worked really well for me. And so it comes the end of the year and I'm like, well, I got to sign up for classes next year. Maybe I'll just sign up for jewelry class again because you can take 2 years of it. And so I'm like, I'll just take 2 years of it. And I had an open space, took another year of it. Come senior year, the teacher's like, "Hey, you can apply to do a senior study in jewelry. I really think you should do it. Let's work on a project. Let's take the whole the whole first semester, most of the second semester, and let's work on a project that you can submit to the all city art show at the end of the year." And I said,
Wow.
"Okay, let's do that." And so I proposed, I had to write a whole proposal of why they should let me do it, all of those kind of things. And so they let me do a senior study. I helped out in the class kind of as a teacher's aide, and then turned in this project that got submitted and ended up winning an award at the high school art show. And from there, I thought I was going to be a youth minister. I tried to do that for a semester. I learned that I'm not really great at foreign languages. And my parents said, "Well, if you don't want to do what you're going to college for, why don't you come back home, get a job, and let's talk about what your next step should be." And so ended up, the teacher recommended me to a local jewelry store, and I started working for them as a polisher and have kind of worked my way up from there. So yeah,
Oh,
that kind of gets
way.
me into the jewelry industry from high school. took a couple college courses of jewelry as well along the way, but that was really jewelry as an art, which
Yeah.
is probably why I lean towards the hand fabrication side of jewelry as opposed to some of the more computer aided stuff or just setting stones or things like that. Because to learn how to work metal to make it look like what I drew up, I didn't have all these other options to do things where I could just do it up in a computer and it spit out what I wanted and called it a day. So yeah.
I it's so cool to me because first of all, I'm not artsy at all. So I think that that's a part of it, but I just feel like there's just such a cool aspect of seeing God in how things are created. And there's so many benefits to the world that we're living in today with the internet, onto AI and robotics. And I'm a huge fan of Elon. And, you know, I drive a Tesla and I love that it'll drive me around for the most part. And I one day, you know, want a Tesla robot for my house to do stuff for me. Just, it all sounds so cool. But there's such a lost art. Like when you talked about, you know, you can go in, you can pick out a design, it can be 3D, you know, printed, you know, they make a mold out of whatever. Like,
Yep.
I see the benefit, you know, because you can get, I guess, dead on accuracy, most likely. And and it's going to be faster. It's going to be more efficient. So it's more cost effective. And so somebody for like my daughter that they're looking at lab grown diamonds, you know, as a possibility for themselves. And it's like, I see the benefits, right? I definitely do. But I think we lose this sense of God when we remove human agency from all but maybe pushing a button. And so I just love that, like, God worked through you in a way to bring you to this place where it sounds like, and from how passionate you are about it, not just talking to you today, but talking before and seeing you, you know, share some of the things you do online, it's like, God, this is what God created you for, or part of what he created you for was to create. Like, that's crazy.
I definitely think that's so huge. I think that you do lose a lot of this human touch. I can look at a piece of jewelry and 9 times out of 10, I can tell you, did somebody sit and make that? And if they did, was it a long time ago? Or was that something that just got pushed out of a factory? And you can just feel it in different aspects of everything. And you can, for me, I just see these people and uh and, and they have these pieces that are so old that are heirloom pieces that they pass down from one person to another person, and they're just incredible. And that's what I want to make. Those are the kind of things that I want to make, is that piece that your daughter could pass on to her daughter, or her son or whatever.
Yep. That's so awesome. And so
Yeah.
what is the dream
Oh,
for this?
so dream is so my wife and I lived in Alabama for about 8 years. We loved it. Loved Alabama. Alabama is probably one of the most underrated states out there. The people are great there. Um, if you're a evangelical Christian, there's an amazing church there that does amazing things for the whole entire state. There If there's a hurricane, if there's a disaster, a big fire, they're the first people there on the scene. And we really got connected with that church. We loved it there. Moved for some job opportunities, something that we thought was going to be really great for me, or great for us. Didn't turn out as awesome as we thought it was going to be, but it did get me back into making jewelry again, because I'd taken a break at the time. But we would really love to live somewhere along the Gulf Coast, maybe kind of around the Mobile, Fairhope kind of area, and offer a service. One of the jewelry stores I worked at was really almost a concierge jeweler, where we had this tiny little boutique, maybe 700, 800 square foot. including the shop that I worked out of. 5 showcases, me and a salesperson. That was it. It was in an incredibly exclusive club, golf course club, out in Scottsdale, Arizona. Top 1% of the 1% most wealthy people. I mean, most people, it would have been just as easy for them to buy the store as it would have been to buy any piece of jewelry in the place. And they probably could have done it, and it'd be like me or you going buying a coffee. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what it would have been like. But I saw that idea of having a store where people could come in. We may not have exactly what you want in the showcase, but can find it for you. We're going to talk about what you're looking for, what either A, fits your budget the best, or B, fits what you're looking for the best. Not just, oh, well, I've got this piece, so I can kind of shoehorn it into what you want. But let's talk about what you want. What design do you want? What stones do you want? What kind of budget price point do you want to hit? Is this for a special occasion? Is there a way we can incorporate your special occasion into this piece of jewelry for you? And I want to take that idea and bring it to the internet a little bit, through on my social media, talking with different people, kind of getting some of my clients that way, but also have a small, really, really small retail where you can come in, you and I sit down, we spend 30 minutes, an hour, how much ever time you want to dedicate to it, and we find what's going to work best for you. I draw you up a piece of jewelry. We decide what price is going to work. Do we need to make some budget adjustments? Can we go like a little bit smaller of a stone, or maybe we can do this really nice, kind of rare stone that you might not see all day, every day. Maybe we can do this slightly nicer type of stone, that you might not be familiar with. But really customize something for you, that fits what you're looking for, that fits your budget, and you walk out with a piece of jewelry that you can pass on to the next generation and lives on after you do.
Wow. I mean, as you have thought about that, kind of put that vision together, like what's behind that?
That's a good question. So my wife tells me that I am the most extroverted introvert that she knows. Um, Basically, I'm good at working with people, but I don't really have to be around people all the time. And I enjoy that aspect. And this is very, very, very uncommon for most jewelers, for most people who sit and do make jewelry with their hands. Most of them don't want to talk to people. Most of them probably really shouldn't talk to clients and customers because they're probably going to offend people and they're probably not going to help you sell your jewelry. And that's why a lot of times you go into a jewelry store and you may not even know that they have a jeweler, or they're like in the back somewhere through glass, and it's like, don't feed the animals sign. But after I worked at that little boutique out in Scottsdale, I found that I really enjoy that part of the job where we've talked about a piece, I've taken the time to build that piece for you, and then whenever I deliver it to you, it's what we talked about. And that look on a client's face whenever they go, nailed it, or that look on the face of the wife or significant other. And I've spent so much time with their husband, their fiance, their significant other, and we've really worked through their social media trying to find what pieces of jewelry they like. And they come in afterwards and they're like, you guys got this just right. This is exactly what I wanted. Because I think so many people, I like beautiful things. I think that people should own more beautiful things. I think that's something our modern world and our modern fashion has lacked, is that idea that we make beautiful things because beautiful things, like you said, get us closer to God. because that's what he loves. He loves beautiful things. And he loves whenever we create beautiful things. And because he's looking for that same creativity that he had whenever he made us, and he wants us to show that same creativity. And I think that's huge. I think that's how God made all of us, whether it's you creating a podcast or writing books or other things like that, um, or me making jewelry. We can all be creative, and we can all make things. And I think that's what God called us to do, is to make things and to make relationships. So I really like making beautiful things, and I really like that relationship that you can build with your clients, and where they'll bring their kids in whenever it's their turn. Um, so yeah.
That's so good, man. I mean, it's funny because, I mean, I'm not a jewelry guy. As a matter of fact, I wear a silicone wedding ring now because just working with my hands and working out, the kiss of death for you. Um, but I feel that because that's like my clothes, particularly my suits and things like that.
Okay.
Years ago, 2016, I was introduced to a guy in the community that made custom suits, and he's become a dear friend, and he makes all of my suits, all of my dress shirts. And there is something about that fit to the T, right? That it's made just for you. You've chosen the color, you've chosen the lining, you've chosen the details and the accessories, and you've gotten guidance from an expert. And I'll never forget the first time I put my first custom suit on. I couldn't believe how good I felt. It
Yep.
was like I had to look way worse than I thought I looked, right? I just felt like I was like $1 million in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for a lot of guys, whenever they get their their significant other jewelry right, when they get that piece that they're like, that they see that smile on their significant other's face, and they're like, I got that right this time. I got that right this time. And there's something to be said about giving a gift to someone. Um, Gave my mom a ring last Christmas. I worked with my dad. We came up with this design for her, and it wasn't an expensive piece in comparison. I mean, it was $600, and it wasn't that $10,000 piece or that $20,000 piece or that $500,000 piece. It was a $600 silver, gold, and sapphire ring. She wears it every single day. And I remember how excited she was the first time I saw her after my dad gave it to her for Christmas. And it's those little things that really push me to continue to be good at what I do, to be better at what I do next time, um, to learn a new process. That I mean, I've been in the business for 15 years and still learn new things every day, or a new way to make. I have to make with jewelry. You have to make a lot of your own tools, and from steel blanks that you buy. So maybe I've seen online, oh, I can make this little bit of a change to a tool I already use, and it does this other thing that it didn't do before. Or I can use it to do this other thing that I didn't do before. And those seeing those smiles on people's faces, seeing that gratitude that somebody has for the gift that they got. And a lot of times it's not even gratitude towards me. It's gratitude towards the person who gave it to them. And because they know that they put so much time into thinking about what was the right thing to get them. And just being a small little part of that is means a lot to me, and pushes me to be better at what I do. Uh,
I think that what you just said right there, I think is so much more powerful than most people would give credit for. You know, you don't actually get much, if any, of the credit for the work that you do from the person that actually receives it. Because I would expect that a lot of times someone's purchasing, especially when it's, a man purchasing a ring for his spouse, he's coming in. Yes, she's had influence over how it's going to be designed and what it's going to look like and whatever, but he buys that. And so he's worked with you. So he definitely has an appreciation for you for making that come to life. But the recipient, in this case, the woman, she really only is grateful for her husband, which is amazing, but you don't get the credit at all for that. But I think, again, not to like over spiritualize this, but I think it is such just an incredible picture of God's grace in life. And I think it's actually probably something that, no, I know that that's something that you have to be uniquely wired for, because it's got to be really hard. I think sometimes, or I would expect, at least for me, it would be really hard to not get the credit for all my time, all my effort, all my energy, all my work. Like, you spend countless hours, I mean, just choosing a design and choosing the metal and choosing the stone. And in the end, it's like, wow, my husband loves me so much. You know, it's like, no, dang it. Nicholas is so good at what he does. That's got to be a challenge sometimes.
So I would say that that is a thought that could get you all like tied up in your mind. Um, and most of the time for me, I'm creating for that husband because I I believe that marriage is one of the most important things next to your relationship with God. It's I was actually just talking to my parents last weekend, and uh, we were talking about some other family drama. You know how it always is. Every family has a little bit of drama. A lot of them have way more drama than they want to admit to. But we were talking about something, and my parents said, like, well, we would never try to put you in a position like that where you had to choose us over your wife, because nobody comes out on top in that. Because if they try to put me in a position where I have to choose them or my wife, and I choose my wife, that's going to affect my relationship with my parents. If I don't choose my wife, I'm kind of breaking my vows that took 12 years ago. And that's pretty important, to be breaking those kind of vows. I mean, I don't really want to do that. And I know they wouldn't. My parents have been married for 45 years, maybe. I think they were married 5 years before I was born, so that would be roughly 45-ish years. And like, I know that they wouldn't ever try to put me in a spot like that. So to me, if I can help a husband get a little bit closer to his wife or build a better relationship with his wife by making a piece of jewelry, let's be honest, piece of jewelry that is here today, gone tomorrow. And it doesn't have the same longevity as your marriage should. Marriages are forever, in my mind, as much as you can make them. And a piece of jewelry is only here as long as the metal's here or the stones are here. And so whenever I'm making a piece for somebody, I obviously I want to make the piece that the person wants, or the recipient wants, whether that's the person buying it or the person who's going to eventually receive it. But also, I just want to improve relationships between other people. And my part of it is just being able to do what I do and hopefully making enough money so that I can do nice stuff for my wife.
Yeah, it's good.
That's like my goal in life, is to be able to make enough money where my wife can stay at home, raise our eventual kids, and not have to worry, do we have enough money to buy some more milk for the fridge or buy the eggs or go on vacation or whatever. And getting to do something that I love to do is something that not a lot of people get to do. A lot of people have to go punch a clock, and as people say, at the widget factory, and make this widget for somebody else, and they don't ever get to much of a dream, let's say. And I've gotten a chance to do that. And honestly, my wife, Hannah, she encouraged me to get back into jewelry after I left the industry. And she's told me numerous times, this is what you're made for. This is what you should do. Make it happen. So, yeah,
I
long
think
way to get
it's
there.
No, I think it's amazing because, first of all, what captivated me so much in our first conversation was listening to you talk about crawling through the mines, which we never talked about at all. And yet, spending the last 35 or 40 minutes talking about, jewelry making, I just think that there are so many incredible lessons. And even one thing that connects so ironically, but not at all. So, on an episode I just recorded, I think it went live a couple weeks ago. I was talking to a guy about money and the fact that money is demonized a lot in Christian circles, but it's because we haven't been taught to be good stewards of the resources that God gives us. And it's so incredible how and I'm sure you have your challenges and it's not perfect, but you have learned to steward this resource that God has given you, which is this gift of being able to create and to create, specifically to create jewelry. And it's fulfilling this call that you have, like you are fulfilled by way of providing this piece again that, you know, elevates a relationship, it extends it, maybe it begins it, but also it becomes, by you stewarding what God has given you, it becomes a blessing to you by way of being able to provide for your wife and eventually for your family, and to be able to go out and have fun and ride a nice bike and whatever. Like, I just think that, when we, and especially as men, I think we aspire to, most men aspire to like these big things. And so we look out into the world and we're like, man, what is the way that I can get the most noticed? What's the way that I can get the most credit? Even when we're not trying to do that with ill intent, that's just kind of what we gravitate towards. And you have just found this way to, I still think it's incredible. And you probably do get very well noticed and will continue to get more noticed as you create for bigger and bigger things. But it's like you have found a way to simply, very effectively, but to just simply be a steward of God's good grace in your life. And as the result of doing that, God is blessing you. And I think it's just such a profound lesson that most of us miss because we're chasing this myth of greatness that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I see a lot of people out there who are looking for this one path that God has set for them. And honestly, I grew up with, I wouldn't say a silver spoon, because my parents weren't rich by any means, but outside of monetary wealth, I grew up with every other advantage, and to an extent, monetary wealth as well. My wife tells me, there was never something that you wanted when you were a kid that you didn't get. Did you have to wait till Christmas or your birthday to get it? Probably. Did my siblings, who my parents are more wealthy, when they were younger, did they get things quicker than I did? And I always hassle them about it. Absolutely. But I, the way I was raised, my parents have been together forever. Both sets of my grandparents were never divorced. I knew all four of my grandparents. I knew five of my great grandparents, which most people don't. Most people never meet their great grandparents. And I come from a family who church was very important to them. And not just being there on Sunday, not just uh, going to the youth rallies, but really practicing that every day and what we did. And I can't take all the credit for the way I am now. My parents had a huge role in that. My wife has made me a much better person and Christian than I ever was before. Um, and I think that there's a lot of people out there, men in particular, who look to try to make it all on their own. And a lot of times, yeah, you may have to step up, pull on your boots, pull up your pants, and do a hard day's worth of work to get where you want to be. But a lot of times, it's also the people around you who have created an attitude, who have blessed you in other ways that you may not even realize at the time. I sure didn't realize how awesome I had it with my parents until I am now married and learned how hard it is, on how hard marriage is sometimes. I'm sure you know that. Every day isn't unicorns and rainbows and sunshine in a marriage. There's days that are harder than anything I've ever thought I'd ever have to deal with. But there are also days that are more amazing than anything else that's out there. More amazing than the most beautiful sunset that's out there. More amazing than that latest PR that you hit at the gym or out on your bike, or more amazing than that new car that you got, your fancy Tesla that you can go out and whoop any Lamborghini that's out on the street anywhere. I mean, marriage is so incredibly important to not just the husband and wife, but the community, to the church, to their families. I just think that gets left behind a lot. Like, us guys, we can do some pretty awesome stuff, but the women who are there at our side, not necessarily behind us, backing us, but there when we have a bad day and we need somebody to give us a hand up, and we need somebody to tell us, hey, today might have sucked at work, but thank you for doing the hard things. Thank you for putting our family first. Thank you for sacrificing so much. And I think that relationship between husband and wife goes both ways. I think that when you have that great two-way street with your wife, that it gives you so much of a boost, especially when things are hard. It's so easy not to give credit to that when things are going good. So, yeah.
So good, man. It's so good. It was a great way to land the plane. You didn't even know you were landing it. It just came in and it was just like so smooth, and we're on the ground now. I can't even believe it. No, it's super wise. I think these things this is why I get so excited just talking about guys. First of all, you're talking to guys. I love just learning from all different walks of life, all different experiences. Again, not being an artsy person myself, though I just have such an admiration for music and creative art and just so many things. So I love getting to hear that and getting to share that with so many other people that will listen to this and hear you talk about that. But then connecting what you do to who God has made you to be, I think is so powerful, the stewardship aspect. And then, just hearing another reinforcement for something that we as men especially need to hear more clearly than ever is, apart from our relationship with God, our relationship with our wives is the single most important thing in our lives. And I think we believe that in our head. We don't always act that out in our heart. And we need to fight to reclaim that. And it takes, you and I talking with each other and encouraging each other, and then talking to another guy and another guy. And the more that we spread that, the more that we will start to see that rise up. So, Nicholas, man, I appreciate the time. I appreciate you sharing just so much wisdom. It's been great getting to know you, and I just can't wait to have other people get to know you by way of this thing. So, dude, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Wraps up another episode of the podcast. As always, we'll drop Nicholas's contact information into the show notes. You can hit him up if you would like. Follow him on X. I have been doing so and enjoying that. If you need me, you know where to find me. In the meantime, go out and be the men and women that God has created you to be. Peace.